I'm Malcolm Vendelst, and this is an excerpt from the Low Self-Esteem Reading Room, aka Loser, an experimental illustrated novella about a man losing his sanity. Last week, Kyle read a scene where a girl talks about murdering her dog. Malcolm decided that she needed more readers in Loser, then introduced Kyle's brother, who read a piece about a girl running away with her dog. Beginning number 1, Jess continued. The last line that I read last week was the dog was close to God. Tim was part of God and he knew it, at least better than the humans did. Tim and the girl were sitting by their fire. They were a mile or so from the mall, close enough to get food when they needed it, but far enough away that they wouldn't be found. Not that anyone was looking for them. People in general were pretty focused on their own survival, what with the nuclear winter and all. Tim and the girl were like ghosts, but fleshy ghosts with appetites. The girl munched Breton whole wheat crackers and ate green beans from a can. She made sure to eat her vegetables. She didn't want to get scurvy. She knew a guy who got scurvy. Before the big blow up, he almost got it deliberately. He and his housemates collected bread and pastries from the bread garden each day. They had a small mountain of pastries in the middle of their living room, and he ate from that and that alone. He was alternative, counterculture. No one could tell him what was healthy and what wasn't. You couldn't blame him, really, what with what happened to the healthcare system, thought Jess. People like him were considered subjects for experimentation or labor. He just wasn't born high enough on the social scale. When the doctors assigned to him told him to take a certain drug or adjust his eating or exercise habits in a particular way, he'd pretty much make a decision then and there whether or not to follow the advice. He said he based his decisions on minute transfers of energy to which he was especially sensitive. Before he got scurvy, the boy hadn't been to a healthcare provider in over 5 years. He was experimenting. Yep, the healthcare providers were right. If you don't eat fruit or vegetables, you get scurvy. The girl opened her second bag and turned over her camera. Before the shit went down, she had dreamed of being a photographer. Of course, it was a dream that would never manifest. She was poor, and her parents were against it, especially her dad. She could marry a photographer and help him, but could not be one herself. Her dad had the religion. She took pictures anyway. The girl rolled the camera over in her hands and checked the battery. She was good for a day or two. Then she'd have to sneak over to the mall and use one of the electrical outlets that were still working to recharge. The girl had a bunch of electronic gear she kept hidden in an airtight container she buried in the ground. When she could, she edited her photos and pushed them to a photo sharing site called Flickr. Some services, like Hydro and the internet, had survived the nuclear winter. They were rickety. They went down for days at a time sometimes, or even weeks, but so far had always come back. The merch table. Thanks, Stuart, says Kyle. Let's have a hand for my brother. The audience applauds. Wow, says Kyle. You know, this is my first time hearing that story, too. He lies. Pauses. The Annie-book just got interesting. And that's it. Thank you for attending the Low Self-Esteem Reading Room. We're back next week with more pathos. Don't forget the merch table. Support us. The merch table. On the table, there are 4 piles of homemade books. One pile, Stuart's contributions, include a cassette tape with each book. Alien Annis Nin, $5. The Annie book, Naomi, $5. Piss Alien and Other Friends, $5. The Annie book, Jess, with cassette, $7. A woman, about 60, who is Kyle, Stuart, Kara, May, and Misty, and we're all Malcolm, buys one of each work. At home, she makes tea and sits down. She picks up the Annie book, Naomi, scans through the parts Carl read earlier, and begins. Unicorns and Fog. Scene 4. A dream the little girl has after running in the field. The light was everywhere, so bright that she couldn't see, so bright that she was effectively blind. She closed her eyes. She attempted to open them again. The girl awoke. She was dreaming of something that drifted away from the edges of her consciousness. She watched it go, this dream, aware only of its existence, not its detail. I suppose she could recall the contents of the dream in some fashion or other if she put her mind to it, but she was not so inclined. She was not inclined because she could feel something. She turned to look, still half Whoa! Blinding light. She quickly shut her eyes. This time, she opened them just a crack. She saw her lashes, tiny hash marks on a hand-drawn portrait. The only thing in the portrait were her lashes, faint, all but blotted out by light. The light was pure, neither hot nor cold, all colors. How can this be? How can white be the amalgamation of all colors when it should be the absence? Why is white the amalgamation of all colors and black the absence? The girl thought this about colors, but not now. Now, she was wondering what the whiteness was, the bright, deep fog that surrounded her like warm snow, kissing her skin. And she felt something. It was a soft touch to her forehead. It felt like a hand. Someone was brushing the hair from her face and running their fingers through it. She was not afraid. What is this? Where am I? Who is... She nestled into the whiteness as it seemed to take form. She snuggled. Warmth. She tried to open her eyes again, but still, blinding light. Blinding light, softness, floating, warmth. She drifted to sleep and dreamed of a white unicorn with a black horn. The unicorn carried her away from the whiteness to a land where she could stand up. The unicorn showed her grass beneath her feet and motioned to a garden. You, said the unicorn, can grow your own food and use your own arms and legs. You can run, plant, somersault, laugh, talk. You can breathe and own this land. I mean, said the unicorn, you can use it to survive. In return, you must help the plants here breed, share their seeds, and develop. You can eat their fruit, nuts, and roots, but you must help them. In her dream, the girl saw the white fog on the edges of the field. She knew if she went back there, the dream would end. I will let you visit the white, said the unicorn, but you must always come back. Once you have started looking after these plants, you mustn't stay too long in the fog. The plants will become dependent on you. They will give up some of their wildness and allow you to live off them, but in return, you must look after them. The girl looked back at the fog. Can I return there now? She asked. Will you come with me? Of course, said the unicorn, but remember what I've told you. He put his head down to help the girl climb up on his back. Let's go, he shouted in a half-hoarse whinny, and off they went to the fog. The unicorn's head was the first thing to disappear. His horn, like her lashes when she opened her eyes a crack, was faint and insubstantial before disappearing entirely into the white. Suddenly, the girl was no longer riding the unicorn, but floating. Floating again, but grounded and safe also. The white kissed her, she was sure of it, and hugged her close. The white again brushed the hair from her face and cradled her cheeks and chin. Even though her eyes were closed, the girl saw that the light got brighter, if that was possible, and she was filled with so much love and happiness, she thought she'd explode. She tried to hug the white back and found she could. It was warm, with soft pillows she could rest her head between. She listened to the white's heartbeat. She wondered why this blinding light fog had a heartbeat, and drifted back into sleep. End scene 2.